Okay, so as I'd said, welcome to Visual Programming. We want to continue from where we left off last time. I think I had another class where I shared with you HTML. I don't know, class rep, did I share with you the links for the HTML tutorials? Rather, how you can
Yes,
not
yes,
SQL but
yes,
HTML rather. The three videos, the part one, part two, and part three, right?
yes,
So I want to believe that you know what a paragraph is, you know what a heading is, you know what an ordered list is, you know what an image is, you know what a link is, you know what a table is, you know what forms are, you know the different types of form inputs like text and password and date and time and email and file and checkbox and radio button and submit and reset and all that kind of stuff. I want to believe that you went through all that and that is no longer an issue anymore, right? Is that the case? Class?
yes,
Yes, if that's the case, because the reason why I gave you that is so that you can prepare yourself in advance for what we intend to achieve. That is the user interface side of things. That is how you design the user interface. So, moving forward, I want us to start focusing on how we can actually use this user interface to be able to write our visual programming code, which essentially we're going to use JavaScript in this particular case. And in a nutshell, we're going to use what we call vanilla JavaScript. So no framework from the get-go. We're just going to write normal JavaScript. If you want to use a framework later on, then you'd have the basis for the same. All right. So I'll share my screen. Tell us the entire screen. So from today, I want us to start looking at what we call JS. Sorry. Mm, so we want to look at JavaScript. JavaScript. So JavaScript is what is referred to as the language of the internet. And at the moment, it basically runs almost everything. So initially, it was designed to run on browsers. Um, so if you had a browser like Chrome or Internet Explorer, nowadays we call it Edge or Firefox, etc., you could actually run JavaScript inside these browsers. But then, of course, right now we have what we call embedded JavaScript, which actually is JavaScript that is embedded on devices like fridges, microwaves, washing machines, and so forth and so forth. But also, we have something called Node.js. So, this Node.js is actually a C++ compile application that allows you to run JavaScript outside the browser. Runs JavaScript outside the browser. So technically, JavaScript is everywhere as we are speaking at the moment. You're talking about your smart TV, you're talking about your fridge, your microwave, your smart devices like your smartwatches, your tablets, your computer, and really, I can even create an application based on JavaScript. A very classic example of what has been designed with JavaScript is what we are using here, and it's referred to as Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is actually designed using JavaScript. This is a JavaScript application. I know most people don't find it difficult to believe me, but if you even go online and ask which languages were used to design Visual Studio Code, you'll find it's actually just two things. One of them is JavaScript, and the other one is there's a library called why am I forgetting with this library name? I don't use it very much. Okay, I'll give you the name. So there's a library that actually has been used to with together with JavaScript to be able to design Visual Studio Code, and that's basically it. Only those two. And as you can see, this is looks like a very complicated application with so many things inside it, but this is purely what JavaScript can be able to do. So it's a very powerful programming language, and that's why we want to learn it. So I'll open our folder where our tasks are. Then we can be able to see how we can use JavaScript. I think it was called well, let me just open. I think it was called visual programming inside my documents. So it's visual programming. Yeah. So this is where we were doing our work, and I think we'll just focus on here. So for now, I'll close all the editors so that we don't have any open editors. We had seen how in to create to integrate a font awesome, how to integrate Bootstrap, and what we were using them for. I had also done another primer video on HTML with another group earlier. I think I shared the video with you. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course, you should have been able to see that I uploaded that, and maybe you might have even have gone through it. But if you haven't, I'll share the link with your class rep who can share it with you. Then you might just want to look it up and see what we had covered in that primer. So today I want us to start looking at JavaScript JS. JavaScript comes in very many. As I said, it's the language of the internet, which means that it is the one that gives your web pages the powers to do things like form validation, things like fetch data remotely, refresh a portion of the page, do form validation, amongst many other things. So JavaScript will make a page come alive. HTML will publish it, CSS will style it, but JavaScript, on the other hand, will make the page come alive. It animates the page. So you can do animation, you can do form validation, you can fetch remote data, you can just change a portion of the page, amongst many other things. And that is what gives rise to what we call Web 3.0, which essentially allows us to be able to run programs on the internet. So we don't necessarily need to display static data. We can be able to run actually services over the internet. So usually when we are setting up our application, we will also include a JavaScript folder, as you can see over here. So I'm just going to introduce us to JavaScript and see how it works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a file here, and I'll call it JS intro.html. So here is what we're going to use to be able to demonstrate these principles as far as JavaScript is concerned. So here I'm using Emmet. So Emmet is good because once I put exclamation mark and I press enter, it will fill in for me the details of the page, the document type, the language being used, the head, the body, and of course the HTML component. So I only focus on feeding in the data that I need. First of all, it's of course the title of my page, which is intro to JavaScript or JS. We call it JS most of the time, so I'll refer to it as that JS. Now, first and foremost, let's see how can we add JavaScript inside our application. So I'll put a comment here. Sorry, I don't know why it's how to add JS to our apps or websites. Now, there are two ways you can add JavaScript into your page. One, of course, is to use the script tag. So, method number one is use script tag and type the code directly. Let me explain how that works. So, inside under body here, I'll introduce a script tag like that. So, everything inside the script here is going to be JavaScript. Now, this is easy because your files and your HTML files and your JavaScript code is in one single document, so you don't need to move up and down. The only downside to this is when it comes to debugging, and this is a very big problem. Somebody wants my attention on the chat. Let me see. I told you guys I'm not going to admit anybody outside accepting the class list, because then that way I know that you can come in silently. So in that particular case, those who didn't want to access it, it's okay. They can wait for the video. But if you want to come into the class, just go ahead and accept the invite. So there was no attention that was necessary on the chat, but I felt like somebody had asked for that attention. But nonetheless, that's okay. So as I was mentioning, how you add JavaScript in your file in your HTML documents is you can use the script tag. So here I'll use something very simple. Of course, you're going to discuss how we can output JavaScript files. So I can simply write on the page. I'll put them side by side. So let me just go live here. I'll minimize this. The page is played. You can see there's nothing on it. I'll come back to my Visual Studio Code and I'll display them side by side. This way, I'm able to see my code and the output. Then, of course, I'm going to hide the file navigator or file explorer. So here, I just want to output hello world on this browser window. So what I can simply do is say document dot write hello world, something like that. And as you can see, this actually outputs hello world. I have not written any HTML, as you can see over here, but actually the text here has actually been written on the document. So when I say document to try hello world, I'm simply saying go inside the document that I currently have. Then in the body part, I'll put the text hello world. So if you inspect this and you try to look at the code, you can see inside the body, I simply have uh, a script that says hello world, and there's really nothing inside that. So this actually tells JavaScript that it is changing the content of the page without really having the content inside the page, as you can be able to see over here. This is really powerful, as you can be able to see. So now that is just how you'd add JavaScript inside your file. Now the other way you could add JavaScript inside your file, which is what is recommended, is you are going to create a separate JavaScript file. Like for example, I can come here and say create a new file and I'll say hello world.js. Then inside this hello world, I can say document.write hello world like that. Well, if I remove this script, nothing is going to output, even though I have this JavaScript file here. So the only thing I need to do is to include this JavaScript file inside my HTML file, then that code will execute automatically. So what we'll do, we'll still use the script tag, but we're going to use the source attribute. So I'm going to come here like script, then I'll go inside source, src, then I want to go inside because I am inside here. I want to go inside the JavaScript folder. So I'll say JS. Then inside JS, I'm going want to pick which file hello world.js, which is there like that. So when I pick it, automatically again, what did I miss out on? Then of course I need to close the script like that. So once I do that, I should be able to see hello world inside this window. So I don't know why that's not happening. Let me just try and debug and see. Hello world says document.write hello world, which is actually okay. So no, this is intro. I've included bootstrap. I wasn't supposed to include bootstrap. I was supposed to include hello world like that. So if I put hello world, yeah, it should allow me to output this text. I don't know why it's not doing that. So let's debug and see. So I'll come to inspect here. Oh, this is not script. This is not script. It should be script like that. And this should be script. So wrong tag. That's why it wasn't working. So as you can see, once I fix that, it comes to hello world. As you can see, there's no hello world anywhere inside here, but actually the code is inside this hello world.js. So when I import this file, everything that is implemented in this file automatically is inherited by this page over here. So for example, I can come to this file and I can say again document.write and I can say break welcome to JavaScript. So you can see now I have hello world and a break and welcome to JavaScript. So whatever I do inside this file is automatically integrated because we have linked it using the script tag over here. Now those are the two ways in which you introduce JavaScript inside your application or your web page or your web app or whatever it is that you are doing. Okay, so yeah, that is where we start off, and it's a good thing. You need to know how to load JavaScript inside your web pages so that now you can be able to use it effectively. Now, how do we output JavaScript? Now, there are various ways that you can output JavaScript. I'm going to leave this over here. So that was one. I think we have two here. Use an external file as I've demonstrated. And in the external file, as you can see, there is no start script and end script. It is just purely JavaScript. This is a good thing. When you have an error with this file, it will tell you exactly where the error is located, as opposed to if you just embed it inside here, it will now pick up the HTML and the CSS and the JavaScript. Then it will tell you the error is on line number 1450. If you go to line number 1450, you find some CSS syntax over there. So it's not when you embed it, it's not very when you embed JavaScript in your code directly, it becomes very difficult to debug, and that's why using an external file is the best option yet. So that is how to add JavaScript. So how do we output JavaScript? How to output JavaScript? How to output JS. So when you're working with JavaScript, we want to do several things. We want to output some text. We want to output some calculations and all that kind of stuff. How do we achieve that? There are at least four ways of doing that. The first method, of course, is using console.log. So most browsers come with a console, and the console helps you to output data, especially when you want to check what variables have. We're going to discuss variables in future, but let me just come here and I'll mask this code so that it doesn't execute. My page should be plain. Then maybe here I can declare a variable called my name, and I say my name is Richard. Don't worry, I'll explain what that is later on. Then maybe I might want to check what does Richard have. So I can simply say here console.log my name. So I just want to confirm what does this my name have. So if I come here, I can right click and say inspect. It will open the developer tools, the Chrome developer tools, because I'm using Chrome. If you're using Firefox or if you're using Edge, it will open the browser development tools. Then when I come to console over here, I'll be able to see some value here. So this value is actually what is here. Don't worry about this. There's another plugin I have that works out of the fly. Is actually this recorder. So it's the one that is injecting this value here, but I'm concerned with this variable name that you're seeing up here. So when I say console.log, it will simply come to the console window and output that value. And as you can see, it tells me this is coming from hello world.js line number 6. So if you come to hello world.js line number 6, you can actually see that is what I'm actually outputting. So that is one of the ways that you can actually be able to output JavaScript data. Now, the other method you can use to output JavaScript data is document.write. Document.write. Document.write will simply output your text inside the browser. So you can see inside here, I have the text displayed on the browser, and at the same time, it's output on my document. So it will pick my document, go to the body section, then output this value. So that's another way of doing it. Now, in some scenarios, because we have done HTML and we have divs, I can have a div here. Let me give this a div of debug, div with an ID of debug. So what I could do here is I can actually output that data inside that div. So I can come here and I say uh, uh, document dot get element by ID or get query selector, then debug.html. I can put my name. So you can see this is actually where that div is. So when I come to um, uh, to, to to elements here, and I come to body and I come to this div, you can see now that div with ID of debug has the value Richard. And this is actually how we refresh a portion of the page. I can actually target an element in the page, then change its content dynamically without necessarily refreshing the entire page. Now, the fourth method that you can use to output JavaScript code is using the alert function. So the alert function will allow me to output some data in form of a message box. Then I can put my name like that. So when I run this, you can see there's a message box that appears here that says Richard. So when I want to debug, when I want to check for variables, values, and maybe how some calculations are working and all that, then I can use any of those four methods to be able to output the value. Of course, the most favorite one is for me is console.log, because then I don't interfere with my document and I can just come to the developer tools. I go to the console window and I'm able to see exactly what those variables are holding at that point. Okay, so that is how we output JavaScript. Now, then the next thing we need to also know is JavaScript comments. Well, I can comment all this. So JavaScript comments, which is essentially what I want us to discuss anyway. Don't worry. So JavaScript comments, there are two types of comments in JavaScript. So I'll just come here. Um, so we have console.log. Then the second one was using document.write. Then you can also use inner HTML. This is number two. This is number three. Well, they're supposed to be on the same line. I don't see what the issue is. Then number four is actually using um, alert. Then the alert function. So those are the four ways you can output JavaScript when you're working with it. So the alert function. We're going to look at functions later on. Don't worry. I'm just giving us a primer on how we can be able to effectively use JS. So the other thing I want us to discuss is comments in JavaScript. So there are two ways you can comment in JavaScript. You can do what we call single line comment, where you just want to comment a single line. So maybe say, I just want to say that I'm trying to add two numbers, for example. So if I want to add two numbers, I'll simply come here and say two forward slash this function adds two numbers. So it means that this is going to be a comment, one line comment. I just want to to make sure that that line is commented. Commenting means that I'm documenting what I'm trying to do, and at the same time, that portion of code will be ignored by the browser. So whenever the browser sees these two forward slashes, it will ignore whatever is following that. So it's not going to execute that. So as you can see up here, when I commented all this code, the browser simply just ignored installing them all together, running them rather altogether. Okay, so single line comment is started with double lines like that. Then you also have what you call multi-line comment. Sometimes I want to comment multiple lines. So whenever you want to comment multiple lines, multi-line comments. So whenever you want to comment multiple lines, because I might have an entire function and I want to comment that entire function. So what you're going to do, you're going to start with a forward slash, then a star, then you're going to put your comment, however many lines they're going to be, then you finish with a star, then a forward slash like that. So long as something is between these two, then it can be considered a multi-line comment. Let me give you let me assume, like for example, I want to document this function and probably who is the author, when it was written, and all that. So what I could do, this function adds two numbers, then I'll start like that. That's also a comment. Then I'll close here. So I can have multiple lines inside here, and I can say written by, and I'll say Richard. I'll give the version, maybe 1.0. Sorry, 1.0. Then I can say the date that was written is maybe today. Then I can set the purpose of the function, something like that. So you can see these lines are actually multi-line comments. So I can have as many lines here as possible, so long as I start with this and I finish with that. So everything inside here would be treated as comments. Okay, so that is good. So we are getting somewhere now. When it comes to JavaScript, there is what we call uh, uh, variables. And variables, we are going to use them a lot. Okay, so who is that now? Now these people want to come in. I just said that I'm not going to allow anybody in the class directly. Let them just go ahead and attend the class the way the other people are attending. Just a second. Sorry, somebody was trying to call me, but I have muted that. So I was discussing variables in JavaScript. So that thing we need to discuss are variables, variables in JavaScript. Now, variables are very important in any programming language, not necessarily just JavaScript alone. Um, so, what are variables? So, by definition, a variable is a memory location reserved memory location for storing working values. So, by definition, this can be defined as reserved memory location for holding working values. So when you reserve some memory location to have working values, then you have what we call variables. Now, in JavaScript, we have three types of variables. So in JS, we have three. Well, let me not call them types, but three methods for defining variables. And I want you to pay attention here because this is where we make a lot of mistakes and our program starts to have what we call logical errors. Now, the first method is using what we call var, and var is an old way of doing things. Now, var is good, but it also has its own shortcomings, even though it also has some pros. Now, with var, there's something called hoisting. So, var allows hoisting. What is hoisting? Hoisting means that I can use a variable before I define it. Whereas that seems like a good idea, sometimes it's not. So here it means you can use a variable before you define it. Some people love that. Uh, some people hate it because it introduces bugs into your program. So let me tell you what hoisting is. For example, I can simply come here and say console.log um, my name. All right. As you can see here, my name is not defined. So if I was to run this and I open console, it will tell me, well, my name is not defined, right? So I can't be able to use it. But observe here, where if I say var my name and I give it Richard, then all of a sudden it outputs undefined. So it means that I can't be able to access this variable even before it was declared. But of course, if I now go the other way around and I do that, I'll be able to see Richard. So you can see here, if I try to use it before I define it, of course it's going to have an undefined value because at that point it was not defined, even though it was defined later on. So this is not a problem. It just means that the variable is existing, but it does not have any values. That's essentially what it says. That might be a very good thing, but sometimes it might be a very bad idea if you ask me. But it's the old way that you are using to define JavaScript variables. Now, so hoisting is one of the advantages that that var gives you. The other thing that var gives you, it allows you to declare the variable. So I can say here it will allow variable redeclaration. So you can redefine that variable. Um, this might not make sense right now, but as we start writing the program, you'll see what it does. So I can define a variable here, var my name is equals to Richard. Then here I said Onyango. Then I can console.log. So I'll console the two of them. So see, it starts with Richard, then Onyango. So first of all, it was declared as Richard. Then I output it. Then I redeclared it as Onyango. Then I output it. Yeah, that is not a very good thing if you're working in very enterprise applications. So you might end up with a lot of logical errors, which might not necessarily be your fault, so to speak. So it might kind of make debugging the application a little bit harder, the declaration part. Some people love it, I don't. The other thing that var does, it can allow you to reassign variable value. So allows you to reassign the variable. So it means you can change the value that is stored in that variable. So if I come back to this code over here, this JavaScript file, I might not necessarily need to use var, but I can just assign it anywhere. So I declare a variable called my name, and it had a value, an initial value called Richard. Then I output that. Then I went again and reassigned that variable a new value called Onyango, and I output that. So you can see now it has initially it had Richard, now it has Onyango, and I can always change the value. This is not redeclaration, this is variable reassignment. So this is reassigning a new value. The other one, if I put var here, sorry, if I put var here, it means I am redeclaring. Okay, so redeclaration and reassignment are not the same thing. Var my name means I'm redeclaring this variable. But if this var is not there, then I just say my name is equal to this, then it means that I'm reassigning the value. And that's the power of where now these vars come in. So that's var. The other thing about var is that it is not scoped. Um, and that could also be a problem. So this is not scoped. It's not scoped. So let me tell you what it means by it's not scoped. So we are going to write functions, of course, later on, and functions are supposed to solve certain problems. So let me say I have here um, a function that adds numbers a and b, then it outputs the two numbers. Maybe I can say uh, var c is equals to a plus b. Then I can come here and I say add two numbers 5 and 10. Then I can simply come here and say console.log c. So if you do that, yeah, well, c is not defined at this point, but if I define c here and c is equals to 0, and here just assign its value. So you can see I'll be able to access C from inside here. I'll be able to access C from outside here, and so forth and so forth. Sometimes that's not a very good idea, and you might want to, have this variable in such a way that it can only be accessible from inside here once it has been declared. So again, it's a good thing. To some people, it's not scoped. It means that it can be accessed from anywhere within your application, but that is also another problem or another advantage that it can come with depending on how you look at it. So you can actually use var to declare your variables as you've seen over here. So that's var. So I'll just comment all this piece of code. Now the other way you can define variable in JavaScript is using what we call let. So you can also define variables by let. Now when you use let, some things happen. One, variables cannot be declared. When you use let, you cannot declare that variable. So let me give you a classic example. In using var, I declared my name var. Then I could just go var my name, right? So something like this: var my name, not var but let. So let my second name is equals to that. That is it. So I cannot put my second name there, and it puts it right. Then I try to do something like this: let my second name again. Automatically, it will refuse to run. It tells me my second name has already been declared and it cannot be redeclared. So here I cannot redeclare a variable when I'm using let. It cannot be declared once. And that's very, very important because I don't want to declare a variable, then overwrite it with something else as another new variable altogether. The compiler will tell me directly that that is a violation. This is now new JavaScript. So that is one. Okay. So I can't declare it. We've seen that. The other thing about um, the other thing about uh, let is that it does not allow hoisting. So does not allow hoisting, which means you cannot use a variable before you declare it. So if I just swapped these statements, so I try to access my second name before declaring it, it will tell me my second name cannot be used before initialization. So I'm trying to use my second name. I have not reinitialized it anyway, which means I've not defined it and given it a value, and I'm trying to use it. That is totally not allowed when I'm using let. Okay, so it means that before I use a variable, I must have declared it. So I have to declare it first before I actually use it. That way it's going to work out. Well, of course, I need to remove that. That way it's going to work out. Okay. Number three, um, let allows me to do what we call variable reassignment. So it can allow you to reassign a value. Allows variable reassignment. So you can reassign a value. So you can't redeclare, you can't hoist, but you can be able to reassign the value. So when I come here, I can simply say here, my second name is equals, it's not Otieno per se, but I can use that. So when I console.log it again, again, console.log is just one method of outputting the text as we have designed. They said they are more than they are about four. So I prefer using console.log because if I simply want to inspect variables and what they're holding, this should be able to work out for me very, very well. So as you can see, then it was initially Onyango, then now it has been assigned to Ochieno, which is a good thing. So it allows me to do variable the reassignment. Okay, so you cannot hoist, you cannot redeclare, but you can definitely reassign. So that's what let does. Then the third way of defining variables in JavaScript is using the const keyword. So if you use the const keyword, again, one thing is for sure, variables cannot be declared. We're going to see that. That's one. Again, variable cannot be hoisted. They cannot be reassigned and they cannot be hoisted, which means they cannot be used before they are defined. Then number three, variables cannot be reassigned. I know somebody is asking, why would I not want variables being reassigned? Why would you want a variable not reassignable? Why would you not want to change the value of a variable? A clear issue is, for example, let's say we are doing a function to calculate tax. So we can say something here like function compute tax. So when I'm computing tax, I have income over there. Then after income, I'll declare a constant called tax rate. Let's assume we're doing VAT and it's 16%. At any point, will I want to change the value of the VAT? No. It is always going to be 16%. It will not change. So in that case, I return the income multiplied by tax rate sorry, by tax rate divided by 100. So that should allow me to be able to just go ahead and output tax. So I can come here and come again and say now tax rate is equals to 17 now, or it is 20 now, now 29 is 20%. This will not work out. Now this will not give me an error because I've not called the function. But if I call the function here and say compute tax and I give that, then I you can see definitely it tells me assignment. I'm trying to reassign the value that I've assigned to a constant. So tax rate is 16%, and I'm trying to assign its value to 20. That is totally not allowable. But if I were to remove that, it would work only that now it has assigned it to that. So I can simply say here console.log, then I output the value like that. So you can see now that it's going to give me 1600 if it is 10,000. If I put a value like 500, then maybe it will give me 80. So you can see it's actually able to compute. So when it comes to constants, first of all, you cannot redeclare them. So I can't come here again and I say again const tax rate tax rate is equals to 20. That is all not allowed. The compiler will not allow me to do that. Neither will it allow me to reassign the value. Neither will it allow me to hoist. So I can't do something like I can't return, well, um I can't use this without redeclaring it. Trust me on that. If I try to use it without declaring it, it will definitely not work out. So I can simply say here const results equals to that. Then I can simply say here return results. Let me just return results. So return results. Yep, like that. So I can't come and put this thing down here like this. Logically, there's no logical error there, but as you can see here, it tells me I am trying to access tax rate before initialization. So it means that it is not allowing me to do what we call hoisting. Hoisting means I could have used the tax rate, then divided it around. If I did something like var, this would work. So initially it will be not a number because of course this will not have a value, but it will be assigned a value later on into the future. But as you can see, now these are the kind of things we are trying to avoid. I don't want to get it's not a number because now it means I need to come back and figure out what exactly is this error all about. So using const and let would simply allow me to be able to work with that nicely. So something like that, and that should be able to work. So three things. How you declare variables in JavaScript. One, you can use the var keyword. It's an old way of doing it. If you want to support very old applications, you can use it. It allows hoisting. It allows variable declaration. It can also allow you to reassign a variable. It is not scoped. All these other ones are scoped. So you can only use them within the scope that they were declared. So these ones are scoped. You see, when you use var, it will just be undefined, but it's available. The others, it will simply tell you you have not defined them. So that's really what this is all about. Again, it's very important. Just you need to know what a var is, what let is, and what constant. Whenever you want to work with constant things that are not going to change, maybe saying declaring a variable to maybe store a field name, so that I can work with that field over and over again. At no point am I expecting to change the variable of that field. Don't want it to be hosted. Neither do I want to be able to reassign it a new value. I simply want it to remain as it is. So whenever you're working with constant values and all that, something like pi or things like that, then const will be the best variable to use. But otherwise, if you're going to use variables that are going to be changing, then you might also want to use let. Are we together up to that point? You have three options. One, you can open your mic. Two, you can type on the chat. Or three, you can raise your hand. So either method is allowable so that now I can be able to answer any question that might be arising as a result of this. Any question or comment? Okay. Yeah, I was just confirming if the recording is happening. Sometimes it gives me problems. Now, let's look at what we call data types in JavaScript. Now, we have two main categories of data in JavaScript. The first category is what we call primitive data types. Primitive. Primitive data types. So we have primitive data types, and these ones are further divided into quite a number. The first one is number, and whenever we are, what is data type, by the way, is by definition the shape or format of storing data. So this is the shape or format used to store a variable. That's what data type is. Shape or format that you can be able to use to store a variable. So the first one is number. So as a primitive type, JavaScript allows us to be able to declare numbers. So numbers are have different positions. So we have what we call real numbers and integers. So real numbers are numbers without decimal places. Integers Real numbers are numbers with decimal places. Integers are numbers without decimal places. So that's just the difference between the two of them. So the number data type in JavaScript supports both. So I can declare here a constant called pi, and I give it a value of 3.142. So that is pi. Then I can declare another variable called radius and give it a value that is a fixed value, something like 5. All those things are actually accessible. Then maybe I can declare area is pi times radius to the power of 2. So you can say area times radius or radius to the power of 2. Something that is allowable. That's allowable. Then of course with that I can simply say console.log area, something like that. So you see the area is actually 13. So 3.142 times 5 is actually 13. Well, is it 13 point something? I don't know. But I want to believe it should be, yeah, 13 point something. Let me use something like 5.6. It gives me 19. So you can see this one gives me an integer. So maybe if I want it to be um, um, uh, uh, a number, then I'll simply say that something like that. But we're going to look at inbuilt functions later on. So it's 19.00. Well, that must have been quite accurate. Um, well, let me try radius times radius because I want to believe this number should be a decimal place. Yeah, times radius. Yeah, I think power should be times radius times radius. I can say power radius to the power of 2. Um, is it power or power? I don't usually use these functions often. Well, but we can stick with radius times radius, right? Radius times radius. Yes, so that should give me that value. I didn't even need to change it to fixed because I was expecting that should give me some decimal places. So if I put 5, I put 8, and so on, I should be able to get this value. So in short, what I'm trying to say is number data type is this. So you can either have a real number, which means number with decimal places, or integer number without decimal places. So all of them are stored as number data types as far as JavaScript is concerned. So that is the first type of data that we have with um, JavaScript as far as primitive data is concerned. The other category is what we call string. We have string data type. String is a chain of alphanumeric characters, names of people, names of places, names of things, stuff like that, addresses, the likes, anything that you store as a chain of alphanumeric characters. Alpha means letters of the alphabet, numeric means numbers, like maybe PO Box 52428 Nairobi. It has PO Box, which is alphanumeric, 52428 Nairobi, 52428, which is number, which is numeric, and of course Nairobi, then 80100, again number. So when you're talking about alphanumeric characters, then you're talking about a string. So when it comes to strings, they are basically names of people or stuff like that. Like for example, that maybe say I can say address equals PO Box 52428 00100 Nairobi, something of the sort. So all these are considered as string. So when you're storing data, you can store it as number or you can store it as a string. Now, the other primitive data type that we have in JavaScript is what we call Boolean. Boolean. So Boolean is where you have true or false, for example. So I can ask you, maybe um, your marital status. Are you married or not? Or maybe I can ask you something like, do you want to become a library member? Right? It's either yes or no, true or false. Or have you ever been convicted? Are you an ex-convict? It's either true or false. So those kind of questions, sometimes you can use what we call Boolean. Boolean is unacceptable, just the value. So is registered, so I can put true. Is logged in, I can put false. Is an ex-convict. So you can see all these are what we call Boolean values. So it's only always going to be either true or false. Okay, that's very important. Now the other primitive data type that we have in JavaScript is what we call null. We have null. Null is when there is no value. Well, actually, null is a value. Null is actually a value. It's only that means the value is nothing, so to speak. So you can also have null as a value. So I could simply say here, maybe let employee number is equals to null. So it means that it does not have any value at all. Okay, so we have null. Then finally we have undefined. Actually, let me write it here. Number 5 is undefined. Undefined is when I define a variable, but I never give it any value. So it does not have null. It was just defined, but no value was ever assigned to it. That could be a problem because sometimes when I'm working with data, maybe functions and all that, I don't want to define variables, then I don't use those variables or I don't assign values to them. So when I'm checking, when I want to look at what type of data is stored there and I find undefined, it means that I declared the variable, but I never assigned it any initial value. So that way, the value is undefined. It's not the same as null because null is an actual value, meaning nothing. And defined, on the other hand, means that I defined this variable, but I never assigned it any value. So it does not contain anything. So null is something, undefined is nothing. All right, right? So let me give you a classic example. I can define here, so undefined. So my age or department. So when I say department, then I console.log my department. So you'll see here, the department is undefined, which means I declared it, but I never assigned it any value, so it is undefined. But if I go ahead and I say department is kit, is IT, then you can see it outputs here IT because I've actually given it a value. So let's say the seat like that. So you can see the value is actually there. Now, so these are what we are referring to as the primitive types. We'll focus on these for now. Well, maybe we can look at the other category of data types, which are much, much more powerful as you are going to see. The other category is what we call, I won't discuss symbol and the other data because I hardly ever use them anyway. It's just trying to remember because I previously had taught a class and probably had mentioned symbol. So probably it's looking at it and it's like asking me, why have you left out symbol? But again, it's a data type that I hardly ever use in any situation. Now, you might also want to have what we call civilized data types or objects. So the other category of data types in JavaScript besides primitive types, we have objects. And in objects, there are two main categories. There are two main types. One of them is so an array is basically a data type that can hold more than one value. So an array is data type that can hold more than one value. Data type that can hold more than one value. And this is very important because when you're talking about arrays, it starts getting to another territory. And this is going to be one of the data types that we're going to utilize the most. Actually, these, well, we can utilize all of them, but when it comes to actual programming, this is very, very important for us to see how they work out. Maybe I'll not go into much great detail in it, but I'll just brush on it to see how it happens. But so that when you are doing your advanced visual programming, then you can look at them in details, maybe in terms of higher order functions or things like that, which we can also look at briefly just to show you, to make you appreciate how these arrays work out. So an array is a data type that can hold more than one value. So initially, if you look at the data types that we have here, most of them can just hold one value at a time. What if I wanted to store fruits, for example, and I have like 10 fruits? How would I store those values? Do I define each fruit separately? I could do that. But because they are fruits and they have the same properties, why not just use an array? Because an array will store all the fruits independently. So I can declare an array here like this. So and I don't expect an array to change its shape. So I don't intend to redeclare it. I don't intend to reassign its value. Neither do I intend to use it as a hoisted value. So that's why I would want to declare that array as fruits. So when I declare it as fruits like that, and I have mangoes, oranges, and all that, then it means I have one array with three elements. So I have mangoes, banana. I can put even here or mangoes, oranges, bananas. I can put something like apples, and another one is which one? Avocados, like that. So I can store one, two, three, four, five values inside fruits, and that's very, very powerful. But how do I get the values inside the array? It's simple. I simply use the index of that array, and arrays are indexed from 0 all the way to n minus 1, where n is the largest number in the array. In this particular case, n is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is n minus 1, which is 4. So arrays are 0 based index, and we count all the way to n minus 1. So if I wanted to output apples, apples is 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. So I can simply say console.log fruits, then I say 3, and that should be able to give me apples. Um, well, not that, but that should give me apples, as you can see over here. So I can use any index. I can use 0 if I want mangoes, and I can use 4 if I want avocados. So usually when I want to access a value in an array element, I simply provide the index of that array element, and it will be able to get me that value. So even if I had 1,000 fruits, I just need to store them under fruits as one variable. Then using the index, I can be able to to purge the fruit that I am actually looking for, so long as I have mentioned the index. Okay. What if I don't know where the index is? Say I want oranges and I don't know where the orange is. So if I wanted to know the index, so I could simply say here console.log, and this way now arrays become powerful. Then I'll say fruits.index of, then I'll put oranges. And it tells me oranges is at index number 2, so 0, 1, 2. Perfect. Okay. If I wanted to know how many elements are in the array, I can count. I can say something like console.log array.length. That will tell me it has 5 elements: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Perfect. This is really nice. What if I wanted to sort out the array? Maybe I want it sort alphabetically: apples, then bananas, then avocados, apples, avocados, bananas, oranges, like that. I want it to sort it out. What would I do? I would simply say fruit dot sort, and yeah, so I can just console log that. Console.log that. So you can see it has given me, well, uh, let me put it as a string. So, well, it has not sorted it out, so I might have needed to sort it first, then join it. So you can see now I have apples, avocados, bananas, mangoes, and oranges. So these are actually very powerful tools that you can be able to use when you are working with arrays. You can slice elements. You can, by the way, you can even add an element in that particular array. For example, if I wanted to add, say, blueberries, I can simply come here and say fruits dot, what do you say, push. Push adds an element at the end of the array. So you can see now I have pineapples. Well, if I don't sort it out, if I don't sort it out, pineapple should be at the end. So first to join. So if I don't sort it out, you should be able to see pineapples at the end. So push will add an element at the end of the array. If you want to remove the first element on the array, you can say fruits dot pop. Pop will remove the first element in the array. So now you can see I am starting. I have the fruits dot pop. Why hasn't it popped it? Pop should remove the first element. Actually, pop removes the last element, not the first. So this one, sorry, adds elements at the beginning of the array. So this one removes element at the end of the array. What if I want to add an element at the beginning of the array? This is at the end rather, not beginning. Push adds an element at the end of the array. Pop removes the element at the end of the array. If I want to add an element at the beginning of the array, then I'll use shift. So add element at the beginning of the array. So use shift. So fruits dot shift dot, and shift actually, and shift will add. So you can see grapes has been added at the beginning. Then shift will remove. If and shift will remove element at the end of the array. So remove element at the beginning of the array, use shift. So shift will remove element at the beginning of the array. So you can see I added it and then I removed it. That's perfect. So when it comes to arrays, there are so many things that we can be able to do to an array. We can even filter out this array based on some elements. Maybe I want only elements that are, you know, based on have letter B or something of that sort. So an array would allow me to do all those things. So that's why we're saying when it comes to data types, arrays are civilized data types, and they're very, very powerful because one, they allow us to store more than one value. Then we also have a lot uh, of higher order functions. This is a function that function, and it allows us to be able to do things like add an element to the beginning of the array, remove an element to the end of the array, and so forth and so forth. And by the way, I can even remove an element in the middle of the array. So if I want to remove orange, for example, how do I even do that? So if I want to remove orange, what I'll simply do here is to say fruits, which is the array name, fruits dot slice. Then I will give where to start. I'll start at, well, I don't know where the orange is, but since I know where the orange is, I'll simply say 1, 2, 3. So 0, 1, 2. So I'll start 2, then I'll um, yeah, start is 2, then the number of elements to remove is just 1, something of that sort. That should allow me to be able to remove um, oranges, as you can see. So now slice to 0, 1, 2. So orange should actually go. Do I have oranges on my? I still have it. Yeah, that should. No, it's actually the other way around. I don't know why that's not removing, but that's generally the idea of removing an element in an array. If you want to remove it at a specific location, I don't know why that's not working, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I think it's because I have added a few elements here. So I added pineapples, then I removed pineapple. So there's going to be a lot of shifts of elements left, right, and center. And I think that's probably why I have an issue with that. So let me just try to mask this out and see if that actually removes it. So slice, start at index number 2. So that is 0, 1, 2. Then remove one element. Yeah, that should be okay. I don't know why that's not working. Yeah, so the number to start at is 2, and where to end is, of course, yeah, only one element. Well, that's the general way of removing. I'll probably just try and debug why that's not coming out. So that is arrays, and I think with that we should now be able to work with JavaScript rather, in so many ways. We know what it is. I think probably the only thing I didn't mention with JavaScript is that it comes in versions. So we have JavaScript version 2, which came out in 2002. We had version 3, which came out, I think, in 2008. Then 2009, version 4, version 5, version 6 or ES6 came out in 2015. And that is the new version of JavaScript that is even being used to date. So yeah, the versions might not be important. If you read textbook, you should be able to get information. My concern is how to use it practically. And that is how we use JavaScript practically. So I think I'll take a break at that. I'll be able to share this video to show us exactly what we have covered yet. But one thing I want you to pay attention so much is that JavaScript is very powerful, and over the next 2 or 3 months, we are going to focus our energy on how to use it to actually build applications that can run literally anywhere. If it has a browser, then it can be able to run JavaScript. But as I had mentioned, it nowadays it's not necessarily that you must have a browser, because using Node.js, you can actually run JavaScript outside your browser, like Visual Studio Code that I have here. The library used to design Visual Studio Code is called Electron. So there is Visual Studio Code and Electron, and you can see this one is actually running outside a browser, and it's running on Node.js, which essentially is just JavaScript and the Google V8 engine, and the rest is basically a C++ compiler that allows you to run that code outside the browser, which is how this has been built. And this, as you can see even for yourself, is a pretty powerful piece of software because one, it can run on any platform: Windows, Linux, Unix, Macs, Android. It doesn't choose the operating system to run it. It can run on any of them. And I only need to write the code once because JavaScript is cross-platform and can run on any platform. So that's the beauty of this. So with that in mind, just keep your mind open. Try to understand as much as possible the things that we are trying to discuss as we're moving along, because this is going to be an anabolic process. It's going to be a built-up process, which means we are continuously going to be building on the things that you've done in the previous class. So today we've seen how to add JavaScript, and in future, of course, I just expect you to go and put in a JavaScript file, attach it to your HTML file, write your code inside there, check how the output is coming in, look at what type of how we can declare different variables in terms of either using var, let, or const. Then you might also want to look at the different types of data types that we have in JavaScript. That is both the primitive and the object data types. Then once you have grasped all that, next time when I'm coming back to look at control structures, this is supposed to be fairly easy. So we look at control structures, we're going to look at functions, we're going to look at APIs that JavaScript can be able to consume, like the fetch API, the location API, the local storage, and all that kind of stuff. So that now you can really appreciate the magnitude of what this powerful tool can be able to do in terms of helping you create your own application. So we still have a long way to go, but I think we have broken the ground, and with that, we should be able to try and understand further what JS is all about. I'll be calling it JS because essentially, technically, that's what we call it most of the time: JS, JavaScript. Okay, I think I'll take a break at that. If there's any question, then I'll ask. I'll leave you the video so that you can be able to review it in case you need to look at the code for one reason or another. So, if there's a question, the queue is the same. You can use the three options. One, you can raise your hand. Two, you can unmute your mic. Or three, you can type the question in the comment in the messages section. Either way, I'll get your question, then I'll see how to be able to answer it. Any questions? No question. So if there's no question, I want to believe that we are okay. So I will take a break at that. I will publish this video on YouTube. You should be able to review it in case there's anything you didn't understand. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. See you again next time. I think this should be, I don't know when the next time it should be, but I probably think it's maybe Thursday or Friday because I had scheduled two meetings and shared. For those people who have not accepted the invitation, I'm not going to admit you in class without following instructions. Just follow instructions like the rest. Then we should not have a problem with each other. Everything should be able to flow very, very smoothly. Okay? Thank you and see you again next time.